Hi guys, welcome to Mystery Diagnosis.
Amber notices that her daughter's features seem to be changing.
The shape of her head was a little bit off. It was a little bit bigger on top, and her forehead started getting bigger.
We didn't really discuss or talk about a lot, but it was something that we did both notice.
When the veins in little Avery's head start to protrude, she can't help but acknowledge how freakish she looks.
I'm thinking it's a brain condition.
People were starting to say, wow, she has big veins in the side of her head. So, we were like, ooh, that's weird. I just woke up more from a bad feeling than something that woke me up.
But nothing could have prepared her for what she sees next.
Avery had labored breathing. She was just wheezing.
She couldn't even cry very easily like she usually did because she just couldn't get enough air.
My stomach just sank at that point. We really thought we were going to lose her.
We repeated x-rays of all of Avery's bones. The x-ray of a normal person has a fairly thick demarcation of solid bone. And inside of that is bone marrow. What you should see is a very white outer layer with this clear marrow space. In Avery's case, it looked like a bone inside of a bone. It was very troubling.
While a few of the Idaho doctors initially suspected that the bone marrow anomaly could indicate the presence of leukemia cells, Dr. Pulsifer doesn't think the x-rays fit the typical leukemia pattern.
Right.
This was a very unusual situation, and we had to figure it out. The blood work again showed a very high white count. The white cells are what our body uses to fight infection, and generally it's relatively low. Clearly there was a disease going on of the bone marrow. That was very clear.
Right.
Marrow is a substance found inside bones. It resembles blood and contains stem cells, which carry oxygen, fight infection, and control bleeding. As a next step, Dr. Pulsifer needs to remove a small sample of Avery's bone marrow to help him pinpoint exactly what's wrong. He knows that he's found the clue he's been looking for.
I've seen pictures of it before, but I'd never actually seen a patient with the disease. It's exceptionally rare. In the bone marrow biopsy, as we reviewed that with our pathologist, they confirmed it, and we felt quite confident from that point about our diagnosis of osteopetrosis.
Malignant infantile osteopetrosis is a rare, life-threatening congenital disorder characterized by abnormally dense bones. In healthy individuals, bones go through a continuous cycle of remodeling, in which old bone is removed and replaced by newly formed bone. But in Avery's case, the cells that break down old bone, osteoclasts, are defective, so the bone just keeps building up. Eventually, this begins to cramp the bone marrow and nerves that pass through her skull.
The diagnosis, it was crushing to me. I didn't want to accept that this was something that my daughter had.
Involves nerves running through bone, and the bone, when it remodels, accommodates nerves that run through it. But if it doesn't remodel appropriately, then those nerves are squeezed and pulled and twisted and cause pain.
In fact, every symptom, including Avery's enlarged head and bizarre veins, can be linked to the diagnosis.
The abnormal shape of Avery's bones is associated with the disease. If the bone is only growing out and is never remodeled appropriately, then areas are going to bulge out in a very abnormal fashion. And when that occurs, these veins are going to become much larger than they would be otherwise.
Even the strange blue tint in the whites of her eyes is a common occurrence in patients with osteopetrosis.
We really do not know why they get this particular color to their eyes.
On average, only 100 children are born with malignant infantile osteopetrosis each year in the United States. It can be devastating if not caught early. Given that their disease-fighting bone marrow is impaired, children with osteopetrosis often die from a fatal infection.
When parents hear the implications of this diagnosis, that their child will, without appropriate treatment, be blind and be deaf and almost assuredly die somewhere in the first years of life, it's just horrible to hear a diagnosis like that.
Wind. Avery undergoes the bone marrow transplant, but it doesn't take. Undeterred, Dr. Pulsifer repeats the procedure, and the family begins a prayerful watch, hoping that a second pass will do the trick.
We thought if this doesn't work, I don't think anything will work, and we might just have to take her home and keep her comfortable until she died.
Then, on March 4th, 2003, the family gets the news they've anxiously been waiting for. Dr. Pulsifer pronounces the transplant a success.
We thought, oh, there's so much hope now. She's going to live.
But no one could have prepared them for what would happen next.
Finally, with her white cells back, she had the ability to heal. But when they came back, they did healing to an nth degree and released what we call inflammatory mediators, or proteins that are normally used for healing, but when released in high amounts cause all sorts of symptoms. Her lungs became extremely swollen. She went into renal failure and became about as sick as could be.
Then, 100 days after she was first admitted to the hospital, Avery does something no one ever expected.
She opened her eyes and she started just making these sounds, which she hadn't done for months.
Oh, it was a hallelujah. We just knew at that moment that that was a good sign.
Well, we ultimately found that she lost most of her vision.
Dr. Pulsifer suspects that in between the bone marrow transplants, Avery's optic nerve was damaged as her skull grew thicker and thicker from the osteopetrosis.
Nerves in our central nervous system don't repair themselves. So if your nerve to your eye or your nerve to your ear get damaged seriously, they're gone for good.
Given everything that Avery had been through up to that point, blindness really seemed like something that we could deal with.
Good for them.
We stepped back and started counting our blessings. I have very rarely seen patients who have gone through what Avery went through survive.
Today, Avery is a rambunctious 6-year-old who continues to amaze her family.
Avery today is exactly as she was from day one. She's a fighter. She has some sight, and really she gets around almost as if it's not even an impairment for her.
Avery amazes me. I couldn't even tell you how many pieces of music she can play.
I can't imagine our life without her.
Thank you for watching, and I'll leave the video here.